Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. Our meeting tonight, it's Monday, March 11th. Tonight is committee meetings. On our agenda, we have two committees, Finance and Personnel and Committee of the Whole. I believe Committee of the Whole is going to open up and have a few more issues to discuss. Hopefully not too long. But we will begin with Chris Nisley, the leader of the Finance and Personnel Committee. Quite a bit to talk about.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. And we will try and be timely. And I know I will lead off on some of the discussion, but I know other council members have other comments and information to add, as well as the auditor and service safety director and mayor. The first one regards the Fire and Police Pension Program, and we will be bringing forward several ordinances for this. The employees and the employers both contribute a portion to the pension fund, and the employer contribution is set at 20%. Since there has not been an increase in the employee contribution since 2004, and this is increasing over the next several years from 10% to 12.25. So we will be bringing forward several ordinances, one for the police, one for the fire. And so effective on July 14th in 2013, 2014, and 2015, then the pension contribution from the employee will be increased slightly each time over the years. Any additional information, Auditor Hecht?
In case anybody's curious about what our employer contributions are. It's been 24% for several years for fire, 19.5% for police. And our PERS, just to put all that in perspective, also our PERS contributions per employee is 14%,
Okay.
which their contribution is also 10% right now.
Okay, thank you. We discussed a few weeks ago the brick chimneys that are located on the City Hall building, and the City Hall building is one of our historic buildings in the municipal limits, and the chimneys are in need of repair. We brought them up in light of the furnace, the boilers that the new furnaces that are going to be installed in the City Hall. However, they're not. At the time, we clarified that the repair of the chimneys is not directly linked to the replacement of those boilers. They just need the repair and need to stay in the building. We do have an estimate that the mayor has received for the chimney repair, and if I'm understanding correctly, the recommendation from the city administration is to repair 2 of the 4 chimneys at this time.
Essentially, the specs that were put out there March 1st was basically a chimney repair, talking about one chimney. There are 2 ways to go. We're talking about the one that vents our boilers, our furnaces. They're the ones in worse shape. I forgot to take print some pictures of it. I can send you the pictures if need be. But it's coming apart. There were 2 options by the Mr. Gruza Builders to look at it. One was just a repoint, which is probably not going to work because a lot of the mortar's gone and the bricks are loose, at least for the venting one. His idea of doing just a repoint would be about 7,900 or about 8,000 rounded out. Option 2, approximately 9 working days, would be to remove about 2 feet of the height of the brick and rebuild the chimney back up. It would require scaffolding, of course, and take about 9 working days. And again, this is for one chimney. So if we double up on the chimneys, I'm assuming the ones without the vents are not as bad. At least from the pictures I could see, they did not actually target those ones because they were concerned about the venting one. We'd be talking about, I would recommend actually doing 2 of them, the vented one and the one on this side. Since we have to throw the scaffolding up anyway and tie up the area, I'd like to do this piecemeal. So at the top end, which is option 2, which is about $10,850 per chimney, I would actually say let's round it up to about $22,000, and just in case there's more things that have to be done up there. He's talking about taking 2 feet down, but actually I look at it, I think it's a little bit more than 2 feet. So probably we need to appropriate some money for that into lands and buildings and general fund to do this, probably as a TC 200, 300 with respect to professional services. And again, they took some pictures of some of the gutters and other things that may need to be fixed too. We have a copper gutter going around there, and I know it's been kind of grouted once or twice, but not really well done. So that would be something further down the line if need be. But right now, I'd say once we have scaffolding up, we'll look at the two, fix them. I think the furnaces are going to go in first at this point, since I saw them moving boxes. Our conference room is now full of boxes again, because they need to make some room downstairs to put those, to swing the new boilers going in. So we'd be talking about getting an ordinance to appropriate that.
Okay, and this does, the quote says, repoint, remortar all areas where the mortar's been removed or is missing on exterior of chimney above roof line and reinstall flashing.
Yeah.
And that the quote includes all labor, material, scaffolding, roof jacks, heavy equipment, lift, and barricading. So, and the pictures are quite graphic of
You did get them,
the state that it's in, yes, and
I just forgot to print them out.
really needs some repair.
And
Yes.
again, the biggest danger there is if the bricks come loose and fall on somebody's head, it's a problem.
Councilmember Reisner.
At least I think it's a problem.
I was just wondering if, once they're up there and they discover, say, the gutters are in bad shape, and the scaffolding is already there, and so that part, labor's done, would there be, say, contingency money available to?
Well, okay, the option 1 and 2 he's put together is basically $10,850. If we double that up and say, let's say $22,000.
Right.
That gives us a little bit, probably not enough to actually have probably like a 5% contingency. If you want, we can always do that if need be, and we can actually probably talk about change orders for the actual contract. I'm just not willing to go full hog with 4
I understand.
chimneys right now.
Right.
Because then we're at the bidding point, and we have other things that have to be done in the building as well, repointing.
Exactly.
But this is more immediate because there is a danger here.
Mm-hmm.
We could add some more if you want to think. What's your call on it?
Just that we have had some consultants look at the bricks and give us some, quotes for that. But there will be additional rehab that has to happen to the City Hall because some of the bricks are failing, and we want to keep this up.
Well,
so-
I know all the home projects I ever get into, I start out with, I'm going to fix this, and then while I'm there, I find, oops, that needs done also, so I might as well
Oh, yeah.
fix
yeah.
that, and then that sort of balloons out a little bit, so, and I've learned that if I say it's going to cost X number of dollars, I better have a little bit of Y over here to,
Well, you could always up it a little bit, but my expectation, if there is any extra, we can always absorb it from lands and buildings at that given time and then
Okay.
reimburse it later.
right.
The other thing is, I don't know, when you start looking about expertise, these are copper gutters up there.
Yeah.
To do it right, really, what you want to do is resolder them and not just regrout them. That may not be under the expertise of this particular builder, since we're talking masonry for the most part and flashing. But again, I could shoot you the pictures too. I don't think everybody got them, or did you guys get them? No, I think I sent it to
No,
some
I haven't
people.
seen it.
It's about 20 pictures of when they were up there. Some blurry, some good, some bad.
Okay.
President Sands.
I just had a question. What was the time frame again? What-
Working time frame?
When is it going to happen?
We'd like to do it sooner than later, I imagine.
So are we looking maybe at suspending the rules?
Yeah, that would work. I think that would work. What do you think?
Well, we'd like to, as he stated, have this done in conjunction with the boiler work, so since that's already beginning,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
appreciate it.
And Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you. Yeah, I was curious too. Can you give us some sense, is it the chimneys on the west side or the east side? My
East
point
side.
being is closing down the alleys that, or the pass-throughs on both sides. It's going to be on the east
It'd
side.
be on, there's two on either side. The one on this side, front one here, there's basically one towards Washington, one towards, like, say, the Law Administration Building. The one on this side, closer to Washington, is the one that's actually used for venting. What you're seeing was occurring this winter is that they were getting a bleed-through of moisture coming through the brick. And that's when they realized that the brick's been basically eroding on the inside and getting very thin there. So the alternative is they talked about it may not be practical to reline it, but the fact is that if we replace the boilers with like a 95% efficiency, you don't require venting of that nature. So the idea is we'll step up the efficiency of the furnaces, which you already appropriated. We'll then, when they're looking at the bricks, they realize it's the interior of the chimney's falling apart, but also the exposed 2 feet or 3 feet on the top is bad. And it's got a nice design to it because it's got a little bit of detail to it. But the fact is it's missing lots of pieces. And it's got like a copper cap to it too, which helps a little bit, but not enough to actually keep it from coming apart more.
Yeah, you can actually kind of get a good view by going up to the fourth floor of the parking garage and
Yeah,
looking
that
over at it. That's what I did, and
Yeah.
looked at it, and I saw what you were talking about. It's,
And the other two on the side,
It's
I'm
up.
assuming aren't as bad because they don't have venting through it. Eventually, we'd probably learn to look at those too. I don't know if I don't think they took the boom around to that side, the boom truck around for that side. We had to hire like a temporary scaffolding. Our trucks don't go up that much. So that's what's going on. More
Okay.
questions?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Our next agenda item is the University Estates.
Okay, I think in your packet there, you received something dated March 5th. This essentially is a proposal put together by Andy. I was approached by Mr. Wharton up there and some of the other homeowners. They had if you look on page, let's see, somewhere back there, Ohio Revised Code 72706, petitioned by 60% of the landowners of front frontage for improvement. According to this, if we get 60+% of the people to actually say, fix our road for us, we can go through that assessment process. The assessment process, of course, is what you've done before for your, I thought I gave you one too, Chris, no? I thought I got it in everybody's
I
mailbox.
got one either.
I got
They were in your mailbox.
Yeah, these are in the mailbox.
I put them in myself.
Do you want me to?
I got one.
No,
You-
that's okay.
We'll share.
We can share.
Okay. Essentially, what, the critical part here is, of course, is that it's not going to get any better. We have somebody, actually, the neighborhood people are going to bat for this. We also have some realtors, of course, who are interested because they can't sell buku buck houses up there with the road looking like something out of somewhere else. We don't have the bonds for this. So the concept here is to actually start an assessment procedure. It sounds like, I talked to Mr. Wharton, they had a meeting this Sunday. I think, Steve, you were there?
I was there.
Okay. I heard that you knew a little bit about it, but not the whole history.
Correct.
Okay. The whole history is very gory, going back to 2000 when we accepted it as a PUD and gave the key to the cities, and then sued LEAX for water, then sued the developer for something else, and it's a long, involved story. Well, we can make a fairy tale out of it someday. The bottom line is, though, to get it fixed and not to cost us the entire amount, which if you look at was about 700. I think the estimate was about 648 for the road that needs improvement. That would chew up most our street budget. The assessment process is on a pretty tight time schedule, which is why I gave you the dialogue here, the system here, what we have to do. We'll need the assistance of the auditor to make sure we can actually swing a bond. You've already talked to bonding.
I did, and
Okay.
I'm sorry, probably most of you, I know Chris got the email I sent this afternoon. I didn't get a response until mid to late afternoon. And yes, we can take out a loan for these improvements.
But more
So-
important, go
Yeah,
ahead, sorry.
so I'm just saying, and it's a little bit of a different procedure than we would normally talk about because this is still a road that's not been accepted into the city. So it's in a sense a private road, which is why we're moving forward with the assessment process on the improvements needed to that road. And it's been something that we've been looking at for several years, and knowing that it's of concern to the landowners who live there and also just to the community in general, that we've got roads that are looking nice. But since it is a private road, we could take a bond out, borrow the money if we get the petition correct with the 60% of the voters, and there are some stipulations, correct, on the
Well,
the
yes,
bond,
there
yeah.
are some, and we have to have our percentage of people signing on. He recommended, our bond counsel has been with the city for quite a few years, and he's really nice to work with and knows his stuff. But he worked with the assessment on Union Street, Route 56 assessments out there, and these can get sticky. Obviously, the amount of money involved here is not the same as the sidewalk assessment. And he recommended that, there's a form, he has a petition form that everyone should sign off on, because they might say yes up front and, maybe sign a list, but they really need to know what they're getting into. And basically, Dennis said, down the line, people say it's a good idea, and then down the line, they see the cost and different things, and they change their mind. Also, if you have undeveloped property and then when you're trying to sell it and they see this assessment attached to it, it can cause issues. But We just need to cover ourselves and get the paperwork in place. The other thing that I would encourage, and Andy already had this in his timeline, is that we need the assessments to come back. We're talking about splitting this amount up over a 10-year period. And we need the assessments to start coming back as soon as possible so that we can make payments on our loan, which will probably roll over yearly. So the time frame that he has in his letter here, says by the end of August. The end of July, the letters need to go out so that we can certify them in September to the county and start getting some of our money back next year. Otherwise, it'll be 2015 before it will be on the tax bills.
And if I understand, there are 2 or 3 things that probably have to happen. One, if we get the 60% of the petitions, then that would be our trigger for saying, okay, we could probably go ahead with applying for a loan. So it would require 2 actions of council. One, the resolution of necessity, and the 3-part assessment process that we've been through with the sidewalks. But then the other thing would be, much like we do when we're renewing the notes on the bonds on East State Street or for the community center, we need an authorization to apply for a loan. As you can see by the timetable on page 2, if this is to come through in the next couple of weeks, we would have to introduce the resolution of necessity by April 8th. So we are talking fairly quickly here.
Okay, and I was aware of the fact that we gave them, we made an estimate of the cost last April. Andy Stone upgraded that, we updated the cost, and I think he submitted it to Mr. Wharton, who passed, I assume he gave it to the property owners who met Sunday, right?
He did.
Okay, so they have a full expectation what it will cost by linear footage. The major holder of a lot of these parcels, though, of course, is the Citizen Bank. Anecdotally, again, a discussion with Mr. Wharton, he has talked to the bank, and they seem to be amenable too, because, again, nothing's going to happen up there as long as the roads stay what they are. I was around, and I think some of you were for the Shady Lane debacle, which was a unapproved, unaccepted road to a subdivision that fell apart, and I think it ended up to be city paid for. It wasn't even the city limits. It was within 3 miles. The bond disappeared. The township, I think, ponied up money. The county ponied up money, and we did too. It's a short stretch of road, about 25,000 now. So it's a lot less in general. And this is a bigger monster. But the fact is, it's hanging fire right there. I can get you more copies of this. Send you an electronic version if you require this. But again, the timetable will be tight. We have to have all this submitted to the county auditor's office, I think, by
Mid-September.
mid-September. Realize things can hold up. If somebody wants to go and contest the assessment, we'd have to set up a board. But these are all, these are impediments for people who probably want it done. From what I'm hearing, he said about 80% of the people are agreeable. But that's the people in the room, as you know and I know. So it's got a lot of moving parts, but I think it needs to be done.
Any other questions or comments?
I could add just a little bit from the meeting itself. One of the big concerns that I was hearing during the meeting was, again, something that they knew was a linear foot assessment, but you've got some interesting features up there in those properties as well, where you've got cul-de-sacs where you might be the owner of the reverse ellipse on the cul-de-sac, so your footage now is disproportionately large in reference to someone. So there is some interesting issues that was being voiced as concerns from the residents living up there. But again, the sense in the room was that the concern is equally that the roads are in very poor shape.
And I do note that Andy put in, I think it was in, if you had a color version of this in the green, you guys didn't get it because I figured it's for the property owners. It works out to about 5,000 for 100 linear foot, approximately, a little bit under 5,000. But he also took into account corner lots, which have 2 sides of frontage. Also, he wants to wrap that into about another 60,000. If you look at the page, what was it, 3 or 4 there, total dollar amount. There's a $67,000. That would be coming out of us by the city. That is actually for the parts we have accepted. There's portions of that was accepted past reserve at the falls, which is in bad shape. So if we're going to do it, we may as well get that out of the way as well. So that was the other item he was going to talk about. You're welcome. I know you guys are scheduling a tour. You may as well have a tour up there and check it all out. You never know, you may all want to move to First Ward.
No.
No?
We've
So-
toured it for a number of years.
Yeah.
And so I think that the council is aware, of course, every year it degrades even more. Of concern to me, I would state, is this: if Citizen Bank is unwilling to participate. Because as the major property holder, and when you see these dollar amounts and what have you, that would be a concern.
So this is your concern if they do not approve,
It stalls.
then it could stall.
They are about 50% of it, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood, aren't they? 40%?
Councilmember Patterson?
So, 1,000 linear feet, how many feet do you think the 50%?
Who owns what?
The Citizens Bank.
Ooh-wee, I don't know. Looking at this, I see the highest end I see on this one, let's see.
I
see
don't
some.
know, 3,000 maybe,
I see a couple 5,000s up there, I think, too.
4,000.
Councilmember Fall?
When you talk about 60% of landowners,
Yes.
is that by
Frontage,
frontage?
I believe.
So if Citizen Bank decides not to do it, that pretty much,
it turns into a goat
Torpedoes.
trail, yes.
okay. It's not 60% of the landowners, like where Citizen Bank just gets one vote, but the more land you have, the more vote you get? Is that
Well, okay,
kind
when a
of-
petition is subscribed by the owner, 60% of the front footage of the property abutting the street, alley, public road, place, boulevard, parkway, park entrance, easement, or other public improvements in a municipal corporation. Or the owner is 75% of the area assessed for such an improvement. And I think that's the other side. There's about 3 ways to assess. One is by linear foot, the other one is parcel value, and the other one is just in general, you just split it up.
Right.
So I think that's the 75% there. We've always in the past gone by frontage.
Right. Well, it just gives a lot of, I would suggest people up there would start calling Citizen Bank if they're concerned about this.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to mention something that Mr. Wharton did bring up to all the residents who attended this meeting, is that Citizens Bank was in agreement with signing off on the petition.
Had they signed as of Sunday?
I
It
don't,
should be the
That would
first
be very
signature.
Yes.
interesting to find out if they have, because it could very well stall it. Councilmember Butler?
Thank you, Member Nisley. And my understanding in the past was that we had received, from their past president, we had received a letter of support.
Yes.
And he has since no longer the president of the bank, and so they're now discussing it with the new board or the board president. And my understanding is that support is there from discussions that I have heard. And additionally,
told, too.
for what it's worth too, regarding the road frontage, I've also heard that if you have a corner lot, you're only being charged for the road frontage where your driveway is, or the larger of the two. So you wouldn't be assessed for both, was the understanding that I had heard as well. Is that correct?
That's what I've been told, too.
It states double frontage, length is measured along address side of lot.
Address side, okay, thank you.
So, we feel that this is fair. We feel that
Yes.
Andy's done excellent work at
Yes.
compiling this. And after hearing Kathy this evening, I know that John's out there with a petition, but it sounds like there's a form that we'll want to actually have them,
We may need
Sign
to
it,
get
yeah.
that and vet it against, Mr. Wharton spent some money to have a lawyer look at his petition, so he's got one that's been vetted by somebody, but it'd be nice to compare both files
Yeah,
or whatever.
Just to make I would agree with you, Mayor, just to make sure that we're protected, certainly in terms of our investment of borrowing the money. So am I sensing from council members then that there is interest in trying to work this out and proceed with repairs if we would get the required number of signatures
Yes, I
on the
would.
petition? Okay. All right.
Okay,
We'll
so,
State, and Councilmember Gosnell.
I do have a question, and this wasn't exactly clear, but it seems like we're hearing that if they sign this additional petition or this other form, it's more likely that they will not contest it.
I think
they would
what
not
I'm hearing is
contest
that the bond council would like a better, make sure that all the ifs
Yeah,
and buts and
proper.
everything in there is accurate. So they have a form that they feel is covered. We'll have to check that against Mr. Wharton's form that he's
So
been
if-
passing around.
I mean, if we're-
His might be fine, but you have to have something in place from all the property owners. Maybe, I don't know what this looks like. I told Dennis to forward me anything that he had, just to share, I'm not in charge of the process, but He did mention about the difficulties on the Route 56 assessment and the equalization board, and they had to reform it and do it again, and
You talking about the Kenny Drive one?
no.
56, which part of
That's
56?
just, wow, that Union, wasn't it? Just down there on Union?
Okay.
But it's-
Anyway,
but it
that
sounds
just
like-
ended not very long ago,
Okay.
a few years ago, but, yeah, I asked him to send me everything, I don't know, and as you said, Mr. Wharton's paper might be fine. I just would cover myself
Okay.
for the city and make sure that they
President
can't come
Sands?
back and say, well, I wasn't really, I think he has a form that kind of spells things out, so it's not just a paper saying, oh, sure, I want my road fixed.
So you know what you're signing.
Right, so he'll such things as, if it goes on your property tax rolls, there's no early payoff. If you want to pay it off, you still have to pay all the interest on that. And so, things like that, they need to know before they let it go to that. Because he did mention that sometimes undeveloped property, which is what most of these, in particular Citizens Bank lots have no, buildings on them, that they might be a little bit harder to sell down the line, things like that. And they just need to know what they're getting into.
And the reason I ask is so that we know what we're getting into. I've thought that the city should take this on without a petition, because they're bad roads that the city doesn't own, but we can do something to help fix them. But the reason I ask is, say Citizens Bank signs the petition, and it goes through, they can still contest it when it comes time for them to be
You mean
charged.
Citizens Bank?
Citizens Bank.
Any citizen.
They can charge the actual
anyone.
amount, can't they? Isn't that part of the assessment process, that they're...
We would be
you appoint a
assessing those
board
values if
and-
they want to contest
Right.
it.
My
Right.
only point is anyone would have the ability to fight it even though they signed on
Right.
in
That's
the
true.
beginning.
Yeah.
Just so we're aware that
And they could
just because
ask
they
for
sign
a
it
hearing
doesn't mean
by an
that
equalization.
it's an automatic acceptance of it.
Contesting the assessment could come on two fronts, and I'm not a lawyer, because, that would be somebody else. One is they could say the value is too high. We had an assessment board that went through that for Carpenter Street, some of the sidewalk. We were doing sidewalks at the time, of course, and a lower amount of money. The other way is they could say, okay, so you haven't accepted the roads, can you assess us for that? And that's a little sticking point there, but the fact is, personally, I've been quoted many times that I consider this toxic and would like to see it die in the valley. Professionally, I recognize that it's not going to go away and it has to be dealt with, okay? So if it gets stalled in some kind of assessment process, we can wait a couple of years and rent goats at the bottom of 682. Or burrows, I guess.
Right, but the 2012 quote was $655,000, and we're now at $715,000. So I would agree, in a professional sense, for the good of the community, this would work to move this along, and echoing your opinions that we need to try and get it fixed. President Sands, any other comments?
I've read this a couple times, and I haven't heard a discussion. If everything goes through and we borrow the money and fix the roads, is the city going to, are they going to be city roads?
Yes.
It would be built
we
to
would accept it.
specifications.
We're accepting them as city roads.
Yes.
So it's
So,
no longer a
so
private
later
road?
on, if somebody gets a pothole,
They
we'll
can call
fix
us
it.
up.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's gonna be nice and new, and it won't get potholes.
Allahu, I will
Member-
check on this objection, whether or not that they can still file it.
I would probably look in the
I wouldn't
specs.
imagine that they would.
I would imagine they would too, but
We should know the possibility.
And
Okay.
Councilmember Pappy?
So just to clarify that situation that Mr. Sands brought up was that it
Once
will then become not a private road, but a city road
public
Yes.
record.
at this point, once
Yes.
we repair it.
We repair it, bring up the standards we require, and then it'd be ours. It's not that different than what we did for the first 1,200 feet when we did
Yes.
that. So we accepted that, we improved it a little. It was actually not bad shape, but we accepted. Any road that needs to be accepted. In theory, you have a performance bond until it's built, which is the one that disappeared. Then in theory, you have a maintenance bond to make sure it maintains for 2 years. Most of the time, the trouble won't show up for 2 years, so that maintenance bond is almost pro forma. But the fact is that, we're trying to get this done. And you can see it totals about $700,000 when it's all done.
And it'd be silly to have a maintenance bond on our own contract
Yeah,
work.
we assume we
but I
can
would
fix
think-
it ourselves.
I would think that would be-
Okay, thanks for all the comments and the discussion, and we'll remain hopeful.
Okay, and it will require us all working together, council, the auditor, the director of public works.
Okay. The next agenda item has to do with independent contractors who have worked with the city of Athens. And
No, I don't.
we're wanting to inform the public, council members alike, that the auditor's office is going to be issuing letters to people who have worked with us as independent contractors. And these would be primarily people at the community center who might have worked as instructors. And what we're doing is asking them to verify their eligibility for the public employees retirement system and whether or not they would be eligible for payment into that retirement system for the period of time that they worked for the city. So, Auditor
This is a
Hecht-
process that, PERS, it's new. And we got information on this, and it was effective January 7th. And so we have forms, we have 2 different forms. One is to send to, as Member Nisley said, people who've worked for us in the past as an independent contractor, as an individual. So if you're a business and we hired your firm or anything like that, that's not it. It's individuals who worked for us as an independent contractor who might really have been eligible, should have been on the payroll and been eligible for PERS. So they fill out this form. We have to send all these letters out, going back as far as we can. So we have a big list of people, and we'll send the forms out. They send it directly to PERS, and they determine their eligibility. Then we have another one that anybody who is currently employed as an independent contractor, and again, as Member Nisley said, mostly, most of them teach classes at the community center, sign an acknowledgement that they are not getting, they're not paying into PERS when they work for us in that manner. So it's become a little bit complicated to make sure that people we have been treating as independent contractors are truly independent contractors. And so we're working on that. The letters are supposed to go out now, and we'll see. I assume a lot of them will come back. We probably don't have updated addresses for a lot of them. And but we'll just have to see what we have to do. The problem is, what I really want council to know is, if someone is determined that they should have been paid 20 years ago, the interest on that is going to be ridiculous, and there's no relief from that, because I've tried that. We have people requesting of our office on a regular basis that are approaching retirement who worked at, for the community center one summer back in the 70s. We've had a couple people we're working on around the same time, same book we're looking at, this stuff's not on our computer, trying to buy back, something so they can retire a little bit earlier. And it's a really difficult process. And once they buy back their share, then we have to pay our share and interest for all these years. As I said, there's no relief.
Yeah.
So if these people come back, then there will be a money issue involved when it's time to pay PERS.
Mayor Weil?
I was at the, Friday I went up to Columbus for the Mayor's Association, as part of the Ohio Municipal League. They were discussing this as well, and part of the problem is the definition of what a contractor is. Individual contractor is kind of nebulous. They've changed the definition a little bit. They did not put any time on it, how far back you can go. Again, somebody would have to buy that time, let's say a year somewhere in 1970. We would have to make our side contribution and pay the interest between 1970 and now. So that's where the dollar amount comes through. I was under the impression in the conversations they were going to actually pull back on the implementation date, because I think the state was looking at this. It kind of snuck in the OPERS legislation, and I know you saw it in January 9th. I saw you sent an email out saying this is a problem here.
Well, yes, they gave us till March 7th to get our letters out.
Okay.
And, that wasn't really a lot of time. I'll be honest, right away, I sent something out to my listserv of other finance officers and auditors and saying, hey, what are you doing? What kind of letter are you putting with this? And I got no responses. And so, I just didn't know. It's difficult. It's a difficult process. And so we have come up with our own letter. Of course, PERS suggested we send the entire newsletter that they sent us out, which is not,
Nobody's
it's
gonna
2
read it.
pages, it's involved, and, people, it's too much information. So we have a letter, we just haven't pulled everything together quite yet. We've been going through this list, but it's a big deal. This just happened to me last year. Someone had requested their information from in 2005, and we sent it to PERS. There's a form that we fill out. We sent it. However, it took this woman 7 years to buy back her share. And so even though we accepted in 2005 that she had previous time, I feel like we should have been billed by PERS, but we weren't until 7 years later, and that was another 7 years of interest that we had to pay. The interest far exceeds what we should have paid in on these people, and so, yes, some of these people, I think 1997 we're going back as far as we can. So,
A lot of the smaller villages and cities have decided we're just going to pick a date and run with it. I mean, there's so much gray area in this legislation. You know, one of the dialogues was, okay, so what is the cutoff? An LLC, a business person with a business tax ID number. There was actually a conversation saying if it's some number of people, are you going to start selecting your bidding in terms of the number of people, whether individual versus a company, so you don't have to have this. And again, the idea of getting them to waive the PERS, OPERS when they sign on for the contract is another thing entirely, which I don't think we really did that much of in the past. So these are issues that are snowballing. But again, it's the interest.
Before about 1992.
We started doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have part-time and seasonal employees waive their PERS contributions. And there's a little form that people fill out now, and we have everyone fill that out if they want to waive it and get that money. But back then we didn't. I suspect it was the practice universally, but PERS is holding us accountable for that if we don't have that in their files. And that's a lot of people going back to then, and that's where we run into trouble. And when I called PERS, I've called a couple times, and it's pretty vague on how far back. I was told go back as far as you're comfortable. I'm like, okay, how about a year, maybe 2? But we can't do that. We're making our best effort, but it's a big process, and I don't know what happens if we have people on our list and we get their letters back. And it's unclear to me about people who are maybe teaching a class right now who also taught in the fall, and things like that. So.
Well, thanks for keeping us up to date on it, and we'll
Yeah.
stay tuned and hope that there aren't
Can I
any
ask a quick-
huge liabilities. Yeah, Councilmember
Who
Full.
gets the back interest?
PERS.
PERS does.
Oh,
The finance.
imagine.
PERS gets it all.
There's always a possibility to have a
So,
little
yeah.
OPERS symbol on that ancestry.com, so you can click on that and find
Yes.
out whether you're signed.
Well, it just, once again, we're moving at the, pace of business up in Columbus, and it's just another way of making more work for you, along with
Oh, it
everything
is.
else that's coming down.
It's been hours of work trying to track some of these people down, for one thing, and we still haven't even sent the letters out. I wasn't going to say that publicly, but we're close.
We're trying.
As the mayor said, the independent contractor, we have a list that Claudia took to the community center, but I think it depends on what list. If you answer so many questions, 10 or more, then you're not an independent contractor. If you answer them, yes. But, as the mayor said, it's very gray. Who really controls the hours for someone who teaches a class? They have to teach it during the hours the community center is open. However, if you have a regular job, they will tell you, I can only teach at night, or I can only do Mondays and Wednesdays, things like that. So who is really controlling the hours? That's one of the questions. So it's just very gray, and so we're still kind of looking into that to see. But,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure
See
the
what
former-
happens.
I'm sure the former employees will be grateful if they qualify.
Well, I'm sure people will try to maybe get that if they taught many years ago and are now looking at retirement, and,
Checking that.
I don't know how PERS will handle that, so.
Okay. All right, we have 5 more items to get through. I'll try and be timely on all of these if I can, so it won't be too mind-numbing. The next one has to do with sewer rates, and you might remember that we looked at a chart a couple of weeks ago as we were looking at the wastewater treatment plant improvements. And one of the things we discussed was the rates that are currently in effect and our total project costs. So we are borrowing about $19 million. We will pay back approximately $22 million by the end of the project. This is going to get us up to date, but the corollary that needs to go along with that is we need to assure that there are adequate revenues so we can make the payments. for our improvements. Councilmember Gosney that night during the discussion raised a good issue, what kind of plans there might be in effect to be able to assist people who might have occasional emergency needs with the utilities. And I have checked, there is, and I have prepared a handout that I distributed ahead of time to council members, and this is emergency assistance for utilities available in Athens, Ohio. So I contacted these 4 agencies this past week and spoke with Salvation Army. They do have a service, although it is only one time per year. So if a family receives a shutoff notice, then yes, they may apply for assistance at one time. Job and Family Services has a program called Prevention and Retention Funds for clients in their agency, and where they provide $300 per year for those clients and who have children or clients who are pregnant. Children's Services I spoke with, and they do have an emergency services fund available similar to Job and Family Services for clients of the agency. And Integrated Services also has emergency assistance available if there's a court action or if there's a part of the contract that says that they must keep their water on. And there then was, in contacting our utilities staff person here at the city, she also said that that churches in the community do on a fairly regular basis assist different families, and so she was aware of all of these funds coming in, but directed me back to the agencies to double check to make sure they still have the services available. So I appreciate your asking the question, and it does look like we do have these 5 or 6 agencies in the community providing regular services for people who are in emergency needs. So I would ask for a sense of council members on the sewer rate increases that we had proposed with the wastewater treatment plant. And you might remember that last year we put into effect 3% increases per year for 5 years. What I was suggesting is that we set the sewer rates up so that we have the revenue to be able to pay the loan. So set increase rates for the next 20 years at the lowest amount that we can. We have not factored in receiving outside septage nor minor increases in population. So there's always the ability for us to go back and say, we're flush, or we have more money than we need, and we can drop the increase if we need to, back a percentage point or so. What this means in practicality is that a 30-year bill, a $30 a month bill now, in 20 years from now would be $11 higher. It is still an increase, yes, but in terms of looking at the bigger picture for what some communities pay for utilities, including several of the agencies I talked about Trimble and Chansey that sometimes have $100 a month utility bills. So our $30 a month is, I know it is difficult for some families to come up with that when they're experiencing financial difficulties, but compared to some of the other communities, I think we have fairly reasonable rates. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. Just a quick clarification. You said $11 higher.
Correct.
At the end of 20 years.
Correct.
Thank you.
So I go from 30 to 41?
41,
Okay.
from $30 to $41.
To me, that sounds acceptable.
Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you for all your work on this. This was helpful. And I think people need to realize that, again, these are small increments over time that you could look at adjusting. It's not, we're telling people way ahead of time this is going to go up 3%, so that in terms of budgeting, they will have some, it's not like it's just going to happen. They will have some ability to budget for their utilities.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing for the community to know.
Councilmember Patterson.
Also, just to share, I brought this up, I think, the last time we had discussion or been talking about the billing increases or percentage increases. When you looked at, there was a chart that was in the paperwork that we had that listed 7 or 9 comparable cities to Athens in terms of the rates. And at the current rate, we are second from the bottom. but when factoring in that $11, it still puts us somewhere in the middle. I think it put us somewhere around number 5 out of 9, so still below the halfway, the median of that line.
Yes, Councilmember Gosney.
Thank you for finding this information. As I said before, I don't oppose these suggested increase to the sewer rates. I think it's necessary in order to pay for the upgrades that we're doing. No opposition to them for me whatsoever. I do wonder if we have a table going out 20 years. Do those factor in inflation in any way, or is that sort of a...
It does.
It does.
It does?
Yes, I can share it again with you, but it doesn't
I've got
factor.
the sheet somewhere.
Okay.
Just wanted to know if that was included.
And it's actually, like Chris stated, not accounting for additional monies coming into the
Right.
system, which we actually anticipate happening, but we wanted to just give, the worst flat kind of increase
And-
possible so that you could see that. So.
And as was said, our rates are a bargain compared to some other nearby cities. And so the ability to do these infrastructure improvements, I think most people in the city that pay these bills would agree it's a good thing for the city.
Auditor Hecht.
From the auditor's standpoint, I think if we're going to borrow $20 million, that council needs to make a good faith effort to make sure we have the money to pay it back for future council members and citizens, so that if we get in trouble because we haven't been bringing in enough and then we have to raise rates dramatically, I think that would be even less popular. So.
Mayor
So
Weil.
really, it would require us, what is it, amending, 07512, is it, I believe? 07511,
11.
and add extended 20 years. To add also a section of review, annual review, 2-year review.
I think that's part of the ordinance that we
As it is
passed
now,
in
okay.
7511, but I would agree we need to make sure that that's in there for the continued review during the whole course. Yeah.
And I believe I sent some of you the Ohio EPA price list for their surveys in 2010. Did any of you guys get it? I don't know if it's a PDF that's fairly weighty out there.
Yeah, I did.
But
Oh,
it
and
gives
that's
you,
the one from which we derived the comparison of the
Yeah.
other rates of the other cities. Yes, thank you.
okay.
Yes.
But it covers almost every city and some of the county and townships, both in tap fees as well as the yearly amount.
Sewer rates.
Sewer and water too, so.
Member Nisley, did you
Yes.
state Veteran Services Administration as one of the utility assistants?
No, I did
They
not.
also have provided that for
Well, that's good to
some of
know
our
that they
clients
have that available also.
in the past. And at this time, we've also have on the web, and they're running on the government channel, the home ownership repair program that community housing does for us, and they're still seeking income eligible homeowners who might want to have those upgrades.
Okay. Well, I'll get the Veteran Services information, and then I can forward this on to Tina, so she has it in the utilities office.
Just
Yes,
one last
go ahead.
comment, not to drag this out. And for me, it's separate from the rate increases, and I do recognize there are some emergency sources city residents can go to when they need help paying a bill or their water's been shut off or something like that. If I were king of the world, I would still have make an effort to have some city a city effort to have something for those in the city with the lowest income, because even if they have emergency help 1 month out of the year or 2 months out of the year, there are still many times when people in our community have a really difficult time paying that bill. And if there would be any way for the city to have something in addition to these mostly emergency sources, or to have, if you meet certain guidelines, possibly to have a discount on each bill or something of that nature. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know what the cost would be. I would have to look at the number of people in the city that would meet some kind of threshold, and it would take quite a bit of work. But it's something that I've always wanted to see happen. So just throw that comment out there.
Okay, but realize
Go
we're talking
where
about
it goes.
70% rental in the city, so some of that is
I'm
actually...
not referring to students, mostly students here.
I'm talking about utility bills in general. So if set there, in some rental situations, there's a disconnect between the cost and actually the charge of the rental. There's not always a one-to-one situation here.
Yes.
Some of them pay for their own utilities, some do not. It's just part of the bulk utilities.
That's true, that's true.
Allah is correct, though. I mean, after working in the field, this is the put the finger in the dike for this month. That's not something that's sustainable over the long term. And there are plenty of low-income families who are actually living in the city who are living in rentals, which is just a whole nother clause. And we have that with the owner is responsible, but we all know it's passed on to those who are living there.
But it would be something to keep in mind, see if we can figure out a way to design a system that might help. We'll engage your expertise, thoughts on that as we move forward on it, or try to. Perfection report is next, and I will try and summarize the highlights so we all don't glaze over on this. But I know that this has been very important because we move forward with this with the hopes of energy savings. And I think as the representative from the company today, when he spoke with the mayor and Deputy Service Safety Director Ron Lucas, said, well, it's not only energy savings, but it's infrastructure improvement. So back to your thing of keeping our infrastructure and our city in good shape. So what I'm going to direct you to, city council members have received 3 pages, and this may have come in your mailbox last week, and so you should have a table. It says City of Athens Energy Savings Report is the first page of it. I'm going to direct you to the table on the second page, which is the Scenario Comparison Report, because what that does is highlights for us the improvements that were made by building and the actual savings that we achieved. So if you'll follow along with me on City Hall, we had some electric upgrades, and the baseline cost of that was $17,217. And if you'll move over 2 columns to the very outside column, the actual cost was $15,479. Now, this is a report for 8 months' worth of utilities. And so our savings there is the difference between the $17,217 and the actual cost of $15,479. So there was a savings of $1,738, City Hall electricity. Gas in City Hall, our baseline cost was $1,977, but our actual cost for that 8-month period was $894. So there we have a savings of $1,003. So we literally, as we talked with a representative from Perfection Group today, we went through each of the costs. I'll just highlight them very briefly. Electric code office. In the electric, the difference is between, in the first column, $858 baseline cost. Our actual costs were $3,290, so a savings of $2,568. Then for the community center, the electricity. This calculation is a little bit trickier. It's, if you look in the first column, it says $96,137 was our baseline. The actual cost was $32,894. And we also subtracted out the savings from the solar panels of $27,831. And then also, so that leaves us actually then a savings of $35,321 at the community center. The gas at the community center, once again, that's a partial year. So if you'll notice that the baseline cost was $2,860, but we actually used $3,649. That will level out and not show so much a loss, but actual savings later on in the year when we have probably a full year. And then the last one is the electricity in the parking garage, where the baseline was $9,872 and the actual cost was $10,000. So there's a savings of $9,837. And if I did my math right on the calculator, it's a total savings for this 8 months of $49,758. So we were pleasantly surprised, not surprised, but pleased. And the other document that I've given out to you, that's the first part of the report. Then the second part of the report is a small single sheet of paper that I passed out to council members just prior to the meeting, and it's a graph for our Perfection Phase 2 savings. And you might remember that we appropriated money last year of about $112,000 for lighting. And these are specifically lighting improvements to City Hall, the Law Administration Building, the fire stations 1 and 2, the water treatment plant. We will not be doing the wastewater treatment plant right now because we'll be incorporating that into our other bigger project. Arts West, the Public Works Annex, the bus garage, the city lab, Habitat for Humanity, the municipal court building, the city pool, and the Parks and Recreation Maintenance Building. So these will be these are our upcoming Phase 2 lighting improvements. And we'll be working on, we will have at least, I believe, 1 year report from Perfection on the Phase 2.
The contract is they're
yeah.
supposed to monitor our savings for 1 year,
Right.
unless you want to extend that contract.
So we'll need to make decisions on that later, but certainly the preliminary, or the first results are very helpful to have on hand, so we appreciate city making sure we got the information from Perfection, and thank you, Member Gosnell, for kind of asking us, where's the information?
If need be, you could probably parse some of this out with your financial reports, monthly financial reports that are out there. You'd look at how much we appropriated, let's say 2 years back, 3 years back, for an NG line, and then compare to this year. The difficulty, of course, as discussed with Perfection today, is that you have hot days, cold days, different seasons.
Hot winters, cold winters.
What?
Hot winters, cold winters.
Precisely. I mean, last winter was not that bad. This winter is a little bit more robust. The other side, of course, is that the actual dollar amount will go up in energy as well over time. So it's trying to measure all these different things out, it gets a little bit tricky. So I can understand the confusion. And again, we told them to give us a snapshot as soon as possible, which didn't include the full year. The front page is actually a little bit more confusing because they compared full year dollars to 8-month dollars, and it got to be a little shaky on that.
Yeah. So there's if you want to look at the front page to kind of redo that math of about the 49,000 in savings we came up with, you could, if you take the 77,590, that's our actual total savings for the month, and subtract 27,831, those are our solar panels, you come up with about 50,000, and that less 36,491 of target costs. And then add back in $13,268 of savings. So, yes, the math is a little more complicated on arriving at the numbers, which is how we found it far more reasonable to just go building by building and look at the savings to make sure that we were actually seeing some savings. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Member Nisley, for this information. And again, I think what to me is impressive is this small investment or big investment in these measures produce data that's indicating we're saving the taxpayer money, as well as treading lighter on the earth, which I think is significant. So I really am pleased to see this information.
Yeah. And I think it'll have some comments too. It'll tie into what we're going to, Councilmember Fall is going to discuss with Committee of the Whole on Earth Hour and what are the other things we can be doing along with this and cool cities and measures.
Something I want to add to kind of backtrack a little bit, because we talked about repair of the chimneys, and what's going on is that with the replacement of the boilers in this building also being high efficiency, I'm hoping that that's something that we're going to start tracking when those become installed and look at the savings, because it sounds like there's going to be more savings coming from those for the city building as well.
More than likely, we will. Remember, we had this discussion about putting file cabinets and carpet and code, and they said, oh, we have a lot of money in our electric fund line. And that's really reflective of what they spent last year, was about half is what they thought, which is reflected in this to a certain extent. So they're already going to spend the extra, the savings at this point.
Councilmember Gosnell, did you have any?
This is all good news. What's phase 3? So are we looking at Perfection performing work other than the lighting? Is there
Actually,
anything else
Ron
in
would
the
indeed
original
like to
proposal?
do that, I'm sorry, to bring back find out what the next proposal and what's fundable and,
What's left out of the original stack that we might want to do?
And some of the stuff we can do on our own, we have done on our own, replacements of certain chillers and other pieces of equipment that need to be done. If you look at that front page there, they talk about cost avoidance agreements because of new equipment. Operational maintenance repair avoidances is $10,546. That's what their number is, what it would cost to fix the stuff that's old.
Right.
So over time, we will be able to, improve things as they go on. We'll use them as a guidance. We may use them internally or externally, depending on if they have local contractors or not. I believe it's a discussion that's occurring at the staff level.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving on.
Is there for the-
We have two projects that are related to our streets and transportation and getting around town. One of these is the Columbus Road Bike Path Spur, and Councilmember Gosney has been reporting to us as it relates to transportation. We have been awarded up to $1 million from Ohio Department of Transportation Enhancement Funds. And our estimates that we'll need, of this grant money awarded, we'll need approximately $765,000 for the construction cost. And city cost share would be 20% of the grant amount, or $153,000. What the Public Works and Engineering Office would like to do at this point is, since construction is to begin in 2014, to begin the design and engineering costs for the city. And their recommendation is that we take those monies from Street Fund 220 for the design engineering. And checking in the unappropriated balance that we have available on February 18th, we have $602,000 available, of which they'd like to spend $170,000 now for the engineering on it. So if that's agreeable with folks, we'd have the first reading for that authorization appropriation for the design engineering on the 18th. Councilmember Fall.
I just have a general question. With all these grants and monies that are coming from ODOT that are theoretically probably also coming from the federal government, how is the sequester, how is that going to affect us? And if we start putting money into things and start doing things, are we going to be kind of out if all of a sudden those grants just dry up? I mean,
It's a good question.
I mean, they're awarded. These are awarded. These are
Is it a
considered
check?
received, as it were.
so they have the money in the bank.
Based on what I've just observed by watching CNN, sequestration is really affecting employees and positions.
Right.
as
Well, right
opposed
now,
to-
but that's down the line. If things don't happen, they probably start affecting programs. And they're trying to get the low fruit first, which is unfortunately people, you know. I don't want us to start, putting our money into programs that might never come to fruition and have, it's like, how much money do we have to put forward to get other money in?
Do we?
Or who do we ask for
Do we
those
have the award letter?
I do. And I can get that to you, just to give you some level of comfort, but it doesn't sound like
But
that.
it's probably something we should think about every time we get money from, is that going to affect interest rates on our sewer? I just would hate, because I don't trust the state to do anything but pass all the costs down onto us, because that's what they've done every time. So I just want to, put that out there and just to keep it in forefront, because Columbus will, just like with PERS, they'll just pass it on down.
Some of these are local led, so they go through us, but the money comes directly from the funding entities. Some of them are the reimbursable, and that's where I think I hear
Yeah.
more of your concern, so,
Just
where we have to put it out and then get it back, so.
That's a good question. Yeah, thank you for raising it.
I could just throw something out there just for your information regarding monies coming down through the state. Ray did a report today for the first 2 months of 2012 and the first 2 months of 2013 based on these intergovernmental receivables that we get, like the county local government funds, state local government, cents per gallon, gas excise, district registration, county fees, $5 fees, so we get an additional county fees. Anyway, there's several of them on here. Last year, for the first 2 months, we brought in $194,827. So far this year, in the same time frame, $142,896. That's about $50,000 less. So just to give you an idea of what's going on.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yes.
That would be helpful to have copies.
Sure you want.
Okay,
Will
thank
help
you.
with our planning.
Okay.
sorry, I didn't mean
yeah.
to be such an Eeyore, but
Okay. The other improvement project that we have is the Richland Avenue South Improvement Project. And the total project cost on this will be approximately $4 million. And once again, we are embarking on a plan to begin the design engineering for this part of the project right now. And I might mention that this is one of our most important gateways, and we have approximately 10% of the population living in the south end of town, and traveling on this every day, and three large apartment complexes, and a lot of people. This the Public Works and Engineering Office is asking for an authorization to apply for a Transportation Alternatives Program. It's a grant that's due May 1. And if so, that would be a reading for the authorization to apply in March. Yes, March 18th. They're also requesting then to begin the project design, and would like the project design engineering fees for this. And that money would be taken from, I'm trying to blank, street rehab account, that is 572. The approximate cost will be around $400,000. At this point, the unappropriated balance in account 572 is $1.288 million or $1.3 million, and we do get approximately $700,000 worth of funds per year in this particular account. So, seems a reasonable amount. Once again, taking Council Member Fall's cautionary in mind that we do need to round up the rest of the grant funding for this. But it's one of those situations where construction is out there, in 2014, and if we don't begin designing now, we won't be able to get it in time and apply for those other grants. So, questions, Councilmember Reisner?
Well, considering the state of the street is right now, we have to wait till 2014. It's just going to get a lot worse. So, whether or not there's federal money there or not, I think we're going to have to just do it. One way or another, it's going to have to be done.
And it is a plan for curbs. It's also a plan for utilities underground. It's a plan for access for businesses, and we've been soliciting comment for the past, I think, year and a half with different businesses and designs, and then also pedestrian and bicycle pathways. So it's going to accommodate us in any number of ways, just general infrastructure and then transportation around town.
And we're not close to 4 million yet, so keep applying.
We will keep applying. Maybe we'll be halfway there by the end of spring.
Hold a telethon.
We're working towards our last two agenda items. One of them is that we received correspondence from Lance Repp, who you might remember is the Athens Mobility Coordinator and Transportation Services Coordinator, and it's been, I think, coordination of transportation services in the city and the county really taken off since we've been working with HAPCAP to the federal money to have a person in place to coordinate this. But their mobility grant, which makes the funds possible for the staffing of this position, is coming up for renewal in the 2014 cycle. And our cost share to this has been a very reasonable $5,000. So he's requesting that same amount, and we'll also then be seeking money from Children's Services and the Disabilities Board for other parts of the local match. And the application for that grant is due April 19th. So it seems a reasonable amount to appropriate, then we could do that, move forward with that. Under miscellaneous items, I think we received an update from the law enforcement. Oh, yeah, you're right. Before we go to miscellaneous, we have a very important one with the water wells that
Sure.
Councilmember Butler is going to talk about.
Thank you. And at any moment, I'll ask the executive branch to feel free to interrupt with other information or updates regarding this. But in speaking with our Public Works Director, Andy Stone, and also in correspondence via email, he has updated us on some needs to our ailing old water wells. We have 17 water wells within the city, 3 different well fields, and those are comprised of the West State well field, the hospital well field, and then the Armitage well field. In 2009 or 2010, Egan and Associates, which that's our wellhead consultants, they did a production well study, and at that time it was determined that we will likely in the future benefit and need future wells to be dug. It's just a matter of time that we will, which we are experiencing now, clogged screens, corroding parts, and diminished capacity within the production of the water. So the Public Works Director is then proposing that we address this, which, quote unquote, would be good housekeeping and basic necessity for us to move forward with keeping our supply of water. And something that was of interest that he shared with me on the phone was that the derecho really kind of opened up our eyes to this water necessity as well as the challenges we face with a loss of electricity and the pump system and the different size pumps that we have at the main water plant. Versus those are much larger pumps versus the smaller pumps that are at each individual well. So there's challenges here, and not having electricity definitely was problematic, as we all know, in the shortage of water we experienced. So the proposal, acknowledging that we haven't had a new well dug since 1983, looking at, in 2013, repair and rehabilitation to 3 wells, which would be well number 1A, 2A, and number 3, and then minor repairs to well 3A, which would cost $115,000, and then begin planning, siting, testing, design, and permitting of a new production well in the Armitage field, which would cost $32,000, and then follow through in 2014 with the drilling of the new production well in the Armitage field, which would cost about $153,000. So total over the 2 years, we're looking at $300,000. So, and that, I believe, as well, and it was from a proposal that was done from HD Water Service. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
I think that was for the refurbishment of the present wells,
Which is part of the costs
part
included
of the
here.
cost for this year.
I mean, he has asking to have the full authorization, but only appropriate the 2013 monies at this time, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Normally, we spend about $55,000 a year for well maintenance, but again, these wells have been pretty old, and the ones that by the hospital, the ones that have been giving us problems, both with blockage as well as silt. So the idea is to start looking to say, okay, we probably should upgrade our wells, add another one. So that's what's in the mix.
And would this potentially then reduce some of our maintenance costs?
I would hope so, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And if I'm looking at the,
I know we're talking about a wastewater treatment plant, but you do know that there's going to be water treatment plant improvements.
yes,
Equally important, I would say.
Equally. I think they call it the water is the liquid of life. So
That's what I've heard too.
yes.
The elixir.
This,
Pretty deep.
this might be,
question?
the spin.
this might be a bit beyond the scope of the new wells and the well repairs, but you kind of did raise the point, and that is with the lessons learned from the derecho or not learned yet. But regardless, I'm kind of hoping that one of the things that does come up when discussions do go on about improvements would be to have a gas generator down at the water treatment plant or something along those lines, which would really solve the problems of losing power down there.
The engineer has stated that he has a hard time expending maybe up to $500,000 for a very rare event, the number of times that we are working with Ohio University to see if their cogen, if there's a way that we can tap into that just for our plants, for emergency backups and everything. So we are looking at it, just kind of looking at it in a little more broader scope, I guess.
Councilmember Reisner?
I just want to interject. How rare does rare mean? Historically rare, we've never been hit by this, but I kind of think these derechos are going to be a little bit more common than they have been. So it kind of looks to me like it's more like life insurance. You know, you take out a policy hoping that you don't die, but you have it anyway. So I really don't see how we could justify not doing it.
I guess I'm saying that we are indeed putting into place, or attempting to put in place, a backup power that may not be a generator of our own that we have.
Right.
So,
But a system that might work.
But if you're depending upon the university as our backup,
Well, they're going to be operating their plant, their power plant. The idea is that they're going to be able to generate electricity. We actually supplement in an emergency case the electricity that they're generating? And realize, last year, I think we spent, $250,000 on a new generator that was able to cover the other peripheral pumps,
Right.
lift stations and water pumps.
but the problem that we had was the power lines went down everywhere. So
Yes.
the point of having an on-site backup is it's on-site. That's the point. And if it's on-site, let the power lines go down all over the city. It still has its own power. I can't make it any more simple than that.
I get it, and I think as we look forward towards the future and doing a major upgrade of the water treatment plant, that would be the time to incorporate that, as long as we have something in place now that would meet our need.
And my understanding from the derecho as well, correct me if I'm wrong, from your perspective with executive branch, is that the university collaborated very well with the city to do what we can to get back on, for instance, aiding with movable generators to get the pumps working to move water up to the towers. Is that correct?
They did that, and they also assisted in the major
break.
water line break and the draining of the reservoir and everything. So they recognize our symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Member Butler. Yes, Mayor Weil?
Another miscellaneous, of course, is I received word from, I think, Rich and Heather about needing more money for the Go Bus funds. This is for reimbursement of the tickets, I believe, so just a pass-through. The estimate, let me see if I can find it here. They're good for a couple of months, but I guess because the amount of activity is going on, we under appropriated the money for that. According to this, they'll need $45,000 for the year. I can get you more information as that goes on, too.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
For this year?
for this year. I think we only have about 24 in there, and we're running about $6,000 a month or something in terms of the reimbursement for the tickets.
Okay.
And that's, again, that's not 100%, but that's what's going on as well.
And then, did you also have an item about the law enforcement?
I do
Trust
not.
funds, oh, yes, okay, yes, that was at the staff meeting earlier today. We put 15,000 in there, if you remember, appropriated 15,000. The chief has something he'd like to purchase for another 2,000. This is a software to scan cell phones, the way I understand it. Occasionally in times of where they have some kind of a criminal and they want to backtrack what's on his phone, they have two recourses, and they don't do it normally, they don't do it that often. One would be to take it to BCI, who would bring it up to Columbus. The other one, I think, is Washington County has one. But again, I think he's talking about a price tag of about $17,000 for this type of software package. He'll talk to the university a little bit and see if they want to cost share at it at that level, but
Probably not after what happened at Harvard today, so
What happened
I
at
think we
Harvard?
have to have a little greater discussion on that.
oh, okay.
They scan professors' cell phones without their knowledge.
Well, he said specifically you have to have a warrant for this, and it has to include it.
Okay.
That was you missed the staff meeting.
Didn't work
I
in
know.
Harvard.
Okay.
So-
There's always a potential abuse of power, but again, this is just to up that particular fund.
Okay. Councilmember Patterson.
Just a question, because you just mentioned that it would be possibly shared between Ohio University Police Department as well as Athens Police Department. Is it also true that it could possibly be shared through the sheriff's office?
I don't know.
Is
I'll
that
ask
something
her
being
about that.
explored? Is it something that the sheriff could be using as well?
That's a good question. We asked how often this may occur, and he said, you could run it, he says he might have call for it 3 times a week, and I'm thinking, I don't think he writes that many warrants to do this. And again, there's only specific times when you really want to backtrack somebody's cell phone in terms of what's going on. We had this discussion for a good 20 minutes of what the legalities are as well as whether it really needs it. And again, this would be something we could actually get more report on if you need it.
That would help maybe to get a little bit additional clarification on that before we move forward with the additional 2,000.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was 2,000, I think you said 17,000 on accident.
There's
maybe?
15,000 in the kitty right now. You appropriated that
Oh, we'd be
about
using
2
what's
weeks
in
ago.
there.
Right.
And he wants to, looking at this package for 17, so he wants 2,000 extra.
Of which we have, I mean, grand total, we have 32,666 in the law enforcement fund, and he was requesting the 15 originally, now increasing it to 17, so we would still have 15,000 left.
I would say it's not a question about the money.
Right,
Okay.
got it.
Well, it's a question of whether,
Does he have backup ideas where he wants to spend this money? I mean, are there like a few ideas that he wants, and this is,
I'll have to have a conversation with him. I've been kind of in and out of the office, as you know, so I'll be picking that back up.
Thank you.
I
Any
think the
other,
additional money is actually for training, too.
little
Okay.
sample.
any other miscellaneous items
Not
for
that I can
finance and
think of.
personnel?
Okay, we're going to move on to committee as a whole.
I thought that was
One of those
Chris.
extra marks.
That's Chris.
So we're going to, it's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to start, and then
That's
we're
all
going
you
to
did.
Mine's rather short, and it actually, enjoyably, has nothing really to do with money or anything. It's not about the state. It's not Eeyore. I hate being Eeyore all the time. Next week, we're going to introduce a one reading resolution, if the kind of the will of the council here, to recognize and endorse and support the city's participation in Earth Hour, which will take place Saturday, March 23rd at 8:30 p.m. We did something similar last year. We brought it up and we talked about it. Earth Hour is a time that's it's sponsored by WWF, World Wildlife Fund, and it's a global event that's timed so that cities, individuals, organizations all switch off non-necessary lights for an hour. And it's a very visible thing. I remember seeing, like last year, most of Sydney the lights were turned off, and you just saw, you could tell where the hospitals were, and you could tell where people were working in their office, but all the non-necessary lights. And I think if we all think about it, we all have lights that we just kind of leave on, our porch light or, the bathroom light, that we can think about and actually think and say, I'm going to turn that off, and kind of think about how much impact we have using electricity. And we talk about climate change and fracking and those sort of things. There's things we can do about the production. This is how we can also help with making things more efficient, which goes right along with the perfection group work that we've been doing, and reducing demand for electricity and other things. So I would like to present that resolution next week. Also, part of it will challenge Athens to become, for next year, not this year because it's too late, to become part of the Earth Hour City Challenge, which is a global challenge, and there's certain program elements, and we can take a look at that. Maybe that's a good thing for the Environmental and Sustainability Commission to do. If it's similar to Cool Cities, we are a member of Cool Cities. You have access to certain types of educational programs and sort of things. And then they also do some recognition at the end of the year about whether you're the Earth Hour City of the Year. So it's educational challenge. So members,
This is just a thought that popped into my head when you're describing this. Is it at all possible to see if AEP could somehow monitor the change in energy consumption for that 1 hour? I think that would be very interesting to see as a city and to share with other cities across the nation.
do we have like a central?
No.
No, it's each.
We have, what, about 10 different bills? We have unmetered street lights, then there's all the individual houses out there.
They got the shoes down. I mean,
They're working on it.
Was that a cost savings?
It might be worth asking.
Yeah.
And long-term, when we work on the certification for the city itself, that might be a natural, as you say, for the commission, but also for the sustainability committee at the university that's now working towards their next stages of implementation.
Amazing to watch those little wheels start slowing down, especially when you start having your kids turn off the water when they're taking hot showers. And
I think they might be able to monitor it by zip code. AP. They may be able
I
to.
just think it would be
Well, they break
really
down.
interesting to show and demonstrate something in terms of a city's responsibility in sponsoring Earth Day, Earth Hour.
And just a note that it was Dr. Jean Amaral who forwarded this email to us to begin to get us thinking about it. So a thank you to him for kind of raising the issue up and letting us know.
So, we will have that on Monday. Thank you. See, I told you, no money.
Mayor, we'll have-
Miscellaneous, I assume? Can we cover
we have
some of the
more.
things?
We have more.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Member Pat.
So, as a follow-up to Ms. Mosley's symbiotic relationship comment, I want to bring up a follow-up to last week. We talked about the ridges. And since that time, I've actually was able to view the county prosecutor requested from OU, their records and the meeting minutes back from 89 to 91. And I was actually able to view those with Commissioner Schmiel. So we reviewed those, and I've had follow-up conversations with people. And so what I'm proposing tonight is that we, in the spirit of community interest and collaboration, that would be encouraging the city to step up to the plate with Ohio University if they'd like to work with us on this, that we'd like to look at a longer-term future plan for the ridges. I don't need to go into long discussion about this. We all know the historical significance and how strongly this community feels about that property. I know the commissioners are going to discuss this tomorrow at their meeting, and the ridges is sited on 3 sides by the city and 1 side by the county. I think it makes a lot of sense to move forward and talk about our continued needs as a community to get looking at what needs that we may be able to provide. It is within the city limits, and I just think it's an important piece. We know that the statute occurred in the past, but I think we've kind of moved beyond that. I think we really just need to look at this as a cooperative effort, and we're asking the university to kind of meet with us on that, and I believe the commissioners, like I said, are going to do the same. So I see this as kind of a positive thing. The university has followed that plan from many years ago in terms of restoring some buildings, but I think, just as we move further or into the future, we just need to look at the broader plan, and I'd like to see the city be involved in that. So that's what I wanted to mention tonight.
Thank you.
I have 2 items. The first is the plans for the 8th Annual Brew Week, Ohio Brew Week. And we have Mr. Gates here if you'd like to come say a few words and let us know the date that we should be closing our street for this event. You can have a seat here.
Do you guys need maps? Because it is a different location.
Is it a different layout?
Okay.
Yeah, if you could pass that around, people
Yeah.
can take a look at it.
You got one? Oh.
He can do it in a slate.
These maps were generated by the Deputy Service Safety Director.
Ron did exactly right, as we went on the street and measured everything off, and we got some things together, and there was a couple hiccups, and it pulled it all off, and that's the way it's going to be right now, and that's just the way it's going to stay. We want to be as close to that electric pole as we can, figuring that, the city put in a spot to get the electricity from, so let's be as close to it as we can. Really, this is on June 29th. The music will be playing from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so we're going to need some time on either side for, setting the stage up and also tearing it down. The permit will be, I'll apply for the permit from noon to midnight. I don't want somebody, especially in the morning when they're trying to set these the trailers up and the CO2 and things like that for somebody saying, hey, you have an open container before so we want to make sure that we spread that wide enough so that we don't have any issues with that. Really, I think it's going to be a good feel. It just has a good feel to it as walking up to it. I don't know acoustically what it's going to sound like yet, but I'm pretty positive with the hill there and the armory at the end. It could be bouncing back off the armory. We don't know. But as I said, there's other events going on, with the AACA in the parking lot over here. So I think altogether, wrapped in as a partnership, that's going to be, a really good event. So.
Okay, and really this is a change from normally where the boogie was, because that was further south. This is further north on the north quadrant of Court Street, going from State to Carpenter. That's
right.
If there's any confusion on what you're looking at.
So the stage.
We were confused.
Okay. You were confused.
We need labels.
Yeah, I mean, I think where the red stage is, it may be going a little bit more. Actually, there's a sidewalk. I mean, a walkway here, and I think that green. This is the telephone pole that we're going to connect to.
So are you pulling it further north or back south?
Back south, so that we don't have to run as much wiring, and then that way covering the wiring, making it a lot more safe.
So the stage will be north of West State Street.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And there's a crosswalk right there, and we're going to be just north of it. It only makes sense to put your electric right by the, where you tap into it.
Dan, my only other question was whether or not you'd reached out and had a discussion with the Athens Uptown Business Association yet.
No, we have not.
Okay. I'd encourage you to do that.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Great. Well, we look forward to this. I know is this the same weekend as last year? I know there was a realignment with the semester switch.
Yes, it is.
The
Yes.
infamous derecho.
It's a different day, yeah. It's the 29th.
That's right.
No power, lots of order.
All right. Well, thank you for all your work in organizing this annual summer event in Athens. It's something many people look forward to, and
Sure.
we appreciate your effort on it.
Yes, I appreciate the offer to come in front of City Council to explain this, and we certainly hope that we don't have derechos or anything like that. We hope that it's a beautiful day and that all the visitors that are coming to Athens for Ohio Brew Week will enjoy themselves and everybody will be safe and things like that.
Mr. Gates, the date one more time.
June 29th, Saturday,
It's
June
my birthday.
29th. For me?
It's my birthday. Thank you.
Well, I will personally let you right on the stage and
Hey, thanks.
sing a happy birthday.
Jeff, we'll all see you on Court Street that night, maybe.
He might be displaying art. You said the Athens Area Citizens for the Arts are doing
On the
something?
stage.
Yes, it'll be in the parking lot of where Passion Works is, behind the
Okay.
BP station, Dill's BP. And so there'll be there's actually a little alley there that we'll maintain as far as the perimeter. We won't let people over there with alcohol, but they'll be able to walk back and forth. So I think it's a kind of a nice, area to have a good arts festival right there. And then we're looking at other things too. So we're really going to make this Athens this year. I mean, we're going to do some really neat stuff with the art groups and everything else. So the music will be good, and everything will be great.
Well, there'll be a balcony
Okay.
there.
What'd you say?
Nothing.
The balcony?
Oh,
There may be a balcony on that section of Court Street then.
There you go.
Help deflect the noise.
That's your thing, not mine.
Are there any other questions from council members or the mayor? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Go
Well,
ahead.
thank you very much. Like I said, we're very positive.
Mr. Gates, do you have any other information about the wider celebration?
Other activities for
week.
Brew Week? The week.
Yes, though it's 9 days actually.
Oh,
Yes, it's been 9 days. This will be the third or fourth 9-day event.
wow.
That's the only thing we copied off of anybody else. We started the first week-long craft beer festival in the country, And then we noticed everybody else was going into 2 weekends, so we also included those. Friday night, the 21st of June, the OUN will be having what they call the Rock and Roast. This will be their 3rd year of the Rock and Roast. If you haven't been there, I suggest you stop by. The food's great. The music's fine, and it's out the patio by the swimming pool. Then there's events on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so as far as Monday's still the annual kickoff at Jackie O's. Tuesday nights, the Sporhawk Foundation's Athens Cuisine Showcase. Wednesday is sort of like the night where we kind of recover a little bit. Thursday, there's more things that the Ohio Brew Week staff is in. Friday, of course, is very busy for us with a barbecue. We call it the Brew BQ, which we thought was kind of a cute little thing on words, little play on words. And then Saturday night, we go for the big one, and hopefully everything goes off well, which I'm sure it will. We'll be prepared for it. We're planning for it right now. I've got a good staff, and we're going to have some really good music. You know, we have a friend from Chillicothe, Mark Secoy. You'd probably know that name from Athens. Yeah, that's his son and his grandson.
I didn't know.
So, yeah, we're ready to go. I mean, as far as the planning, I can't say that we're ready to go for tomorrow, but give us a couple months and we'll be right there.
We look forward to it.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment that Mr. Gates brought up, is that this year it is interesting that Ohio Brew Week is teaming up of sorts with the Athens Area Citizens for the Arts, the new commission or council in the Athens area through the county. And so it is kind of an interesting merger of the two, to where it is very much craft brewing and artist showcasing throughout the week. And there is an educational component on Wednesday where there's a symposium that takes place. So it's not all drinking and merriment, that there is educational components within the Ohio Brew Week lineup this year.
And we also have, thanks to Councilman Patterson and his efforts to create a partnership with Passion Works. Passion Works is actually creating a pint that has an etched Ohio Brew Week logo and one of their original art pieces on the back of it. So we're looking at this as being a big selling point, and also, putting us on the map as far as nobody else is doing this across the country. So again, I'm really proud of that aspect of it. We were looking at those at the last board meeting, and I think everybody's going to buy one.
Thanks again.
All right.
So you need an ordinance to close the street.
Yeah, we'll have a street closure
You
ordinance.
need to get your F license.
Coming up.
Well, the permits in the
Easy.
works right there. That's, yeah, I mean,
You've done it before.
30 days, yeah, right. I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Needs
It's-
the legislation.
Yes.
Yes, and I know this stuff's how we follow through, so we'll be there.
Okay.
It'll be on your desk tomorrow morning. Just kidding.
Great. I do have one other miscellaneous item tonight, and that is something that was mentioned for a moment earlier tonight, and that's scheduling the annual infrastructure street tour. This year, a few times in April have been discussed. There is one weekend when Director Stone is unavailable. The other 3 weekends, I believe he's available for this. And there was some question by emails with council members whether or not we should do this on perhaps a weekday. I think for me, a weekend works better, but I'm not sure, just other members.
It usually takes a few hours.
It's a
Saturday.
half a day for sure. Okay, so we will try to schedule this in April. Does anyone have anyone that have a certain weekend that they would really not like to do it?
I emailed
We-
mine.
What date did Andy say he could not?
The 20th, I believe.
Or
Correct.
you can also take the 20th out of the loop there, too, so it'll
So
have to
the-
be the 6th or
The
the
20th
13th.
is gone.
The 20th.
Okay, so perhaps we'll look at the second week or the second or fourth weekend.
When is move out?
It would
In
be
May?
that 4th of May, the following weekend.
So
The
you
one
guys usually plan a lot during, so maybe the 13th would be better.
I would suggest the 6th or the 13th, based
6th
on
or
what we have
13th.
facing us right
Well,
now.
I will, if anyone has more feedback, if something comes up, please email me or Director Stone, and we'll try to get something scheduled for that. And that's open to the public each year. So once we do have a final date, we will certainly announce it here, and Debbie Walker is the one to talk to if you would like to attend.
When's the
The International Street Fair.
When's that?
It's in April.
Everything's colliding on the 20th of April, so
And,
I'm
well,
asking.
Beautification Day is Sunday the 14th.
That's
but
the Sunday.
That's a Sunday.
I'm drawing a blank on international.
Well, we will get it worked out, so please send your comments or your dates that would or would not work, and we'll try to schedule around as much as we can.
We'll do it in the middle of the summer.
And we have a council group for Beautification Day.
Okay, Mayor Wild,
That's true.
been wanting to say
well,
something.
Again, they're working out the PCR ratings, the ratings of the different streets. If there's anything that you need to bring attention, you might want to shoot an email to us. I also received some dates possible dates for the cruise-in. They have to be vetted by the Uptown Business Association, of course. They're talking about Friday, June 7th, Friday, July 26th, and September 13th. Two of them would be on Court between Washington State. The other one would be on Union between Court and College. At least that's the plan. Again, we have to vet it through AUBA, and they're not set in stone, but that's probably something you also need to be working towards. The other thing is, I know I'm going to have, I believe, both police chiefs at my press conference to go over the ifs and whats of Millfest, which is the first festival in the queue. So that will be Wednesday at 2 o'clock, if I'm capable of doing that.
When is Millfest?
What?
Saturday.
Saturday.
This Saturday.
This Saturday coming up. We'll probably we'll put a PSA out about no parking on Mill Street for the duration. That's normal. This is usually not a large one, but it's really the first one in the queue after spring break. So
MAC tournament.
What?
The basketball tournament.
Oh, well, that will make it fun too.
That's in
Aren't
Cleveland.
semesters fun?
It's going to
We
rain.
love
And
semesters.
it's St. Patrick's Day
I
on
think that's
Saturday.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sunday is St. Patrick's Day?
Sunday.
So we can roll right into it. The weather's supposed to be not that great, so
Yeah,
we're
It's good.
watching the Weather Channel. And that's all I really have at this point.
We love semesters.
Anybody else? We're all happy to have the Service Safety Director back in her seat.
Yes.
Thrilled to have you here,
About time.
and we're hoping that your husband is doing well, too. Members of the audience, anybody have something they need to say to us? Other than, please let us go home. We are
We
we're
don't know.
out of here. I don't know what time it is.
It's
I'm gonna go-
8:42.
I'm going to go make it to my